Hello and welcome to this final edition of the WION-VOA co-production for 2024. I'm your host, Susan Tehrani, coming to you live from New York City. We begin this week with the rush to fund the U.S. government and how President-elect Donald Trump influenced the process even before taking office. A hastily negotiated bill to keep the government open failed on Thursday after Democrats and some Republicans objected to a deal to extend the debt ceiling through 2027. The changes came after President-elect Donald Trump and Elon Musk rejected a bipartisan agreement to fund the government through next March. VOA's congressional correspondent Katherine Gibson has more.
U.S. lawmakers are running out of time to pass a spending deal to keep the U.S. government open past this Friday.
It's a long process. Sometimes it takes a while to reach consensus.
The deal, which would have extended the U.S. debt limit through 2027, failed Thursday night. It was negotiated in a matter of hours after President-elect Donald Trump posted to his Truth Social site that Republicans should vote on raising the debt ceiling before passing a funding bill. One analyst told VOA that was a difficult demand.
To some degree, it's to his advantage. If Congress now deals with it, then he won't have to bargain with it later or bear the brunt of, the populist backlash for increasing the debt limit. On the other hand, it's a late in the game demand. Congress is trying to close up before the Christmas holiday and get out of town. And raising the debt limit is an extremely hard vote.
Trump endorsed the new deal negotiated Thursday afternoon, but members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus rejected it, arguing Republicans are recklessly approving spending the nation can't afford.
$330 billion. Congratulations, you've added to the debt since you were given the majority again on November 5th. It's embarrassing. It's shameful.
And Democrats, who said they negotiated in good faith, refused to vote for it as well.
The extreme MAGA Republicans decide to do the bidding of the wealthy, the well-off, the well-connected, millionaires and billionaires, not working-class people all across America.
The original bipartisan agreement included $100 billion in disaster aid and billions for American farmers and would have funded the government through mid-March. But earlier Wednesday, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world and a Trump ally, wrote on his social media platform X, "Stop the steal of your tax dollars." One analyst told VOA the move represents a new way of governing.
The difference between efforts to eliminate wasteful spending in the past and today is social media. Taxpayers have a greater opportunity to make their views known to members of Congress, and it can be done more quickly. If there is legislation to consolidate departments or programs, there can be a faster and more comprehensive response because of social media.
If lawmakers can't reach an agreement by Friday night, millions of federal workers will be furloughed or work without pay. Katherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Joining us now with additional reporting is VOA correspondent Jessica Stone. She's live for us from the White House. Hi, Jessica. What were the main objections to the bill?
Well, this is really about a main conflict being in the Republican Party, as you heard from Katherine Gibson's report, because the Republican Party in the House of Representatives doesn't really have the votes to pass a spending bill without engaging with Democrats directly and having them support the same measure. In this case, 32 Republicans voted against the measure. They also don't want to extend the debt ceiling. That's the primary reason that someone like Chip Roy, who you heard from in that piece, doesn't want to support this bill, as well as those other 32. And, Donald Trump doesn't want to extend the debt ceiling either, but he also wants a bill. And so he gave them both of those options and said either or, one of these things has to get done on his Truth Social page, saying, quote, Congress should get rid of or extend to 2029 the ridiculous debt ceiling. The debt ceiling, by the way, is the amount of money that the U.S. is allowed to borrow to pay costs it's already incurred for government services. Now, if this goes down in flames, really, if the shutdown occurs, it's going to be on the Republicans because they have the majority and they don't have the Democrats to support them. It's not clear when there'll be another vote. They appear to still be talking behind closed doors about the size and scope of the next iteration of this. And again, the deadline is at midnight, so just about 14 hours, 15, 16 hours from now. Susan?
Yeah, we saw some Republicans even voting with Democrats on that latest bill. So if Congress can't pass a spending deal and a government shutdown happens, does that impact the incoming Trump presidency in any way?
Very much so, which is another key reason. It's not just the debt ceiling, the reason that he is trying to get them to pass something. His government, that as he takes over in January, is going to be paralyzed. The first thing they have to do before anything else is going to be to pass a continuing resolution to fund the government or a budget. And they're going to be subsumed with that. And on top of that, once he takes office in January, the Congress going into the new year is going to have even smaller margins and need Democrats even more to pass any of his legislation. So he's had all of this momentum, appointments right after he won election, executive orders that have been drafted, legislation he plans to propose. None of it can begin, well, at least legislatively, until there is a spending plan for the government. And they're going to have to figure out how to craft that going forward with those smaller margins. And Dems continue to be mad at this deal that they actually had in hand, but that Trump and Musk shot down. So they're going to have to be able to get past that as well in the new Congress. Susan?
Jessica, please stay with us. I'd like to bring you back after the next story from your colleague, Aaron Ronan. Well, with the incoming Trump administration's pledge to begin mass deportations of undocumented immigrants in the United States, some mayors in Democratic states are taking steps to prepare for the new policies. Aaron Ronan reports from New York City.
Democratic New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced that the migrant shelter at Floyd Bennett Field will close by January 15th. The shelter is in a national park where federal authorities, not city officials, have jurisdiction.
We have been concerned about Floyd Bennett Field since the election results. It is the only shelter on federal land, and we do think that could pose additional risks. In
recent interviews, President-elect Trump has signaled that he will prioritize border and immigration enforcement early in his administration. Democratic leaders have been working to shield undocumented immigrants before he takes office. Meanwhile, immigrants without legal status at the shelter have expressed concerns about stricter enforcement under the new administration.
I see that he is a man who says what he means and keeps his word. Let's wait and see what happens.
Jose says he believes that the actions of a few individuals are unfairly tarnishing the reputation of all immigrants.
There are many immigrants like my compatriots who come to commit crimes and steal. So sometimes just because of one person, everyone pays the price.
Jose is part of one of the two largest immigrant surges in U.S. history. During the Biden administration, roughly 8 million immigrants entered the country. The second comparable migrant wave occurred in the early 1850s, according to New York Times analysis of government data.
I think the numbers that we've seen in the last couple of years are historic. The largest number that we've seen in history by pure number, not by necessarily by percentage.
In the face of these overwhelming numbers, New York City Mayor Adams is adopting a conciliatory approach. Recently, he met with President-elect's incoming border czar to discuss the evolving situation.
My conversation today with the border czar to figure out how do we go after those individuals who are repeatedly committing crimes in our city. We're going to tell those who are here, who are law-abiding, to continue to utilize the services that they have a right to utilize, educating their children, health care, public protection. But we will not be a safe haven for those who commit violent acts.
Many of Mayor Adams' recent actions may be strategic moves to retain a measure of local control, Corcoran suggests.
I do think that one of the calculations he's probably making is he may be recognizing that he might not be able to stop all mass deportations or all mass raids in New York City. But if he's seen as cooperating to some extent, he may have some leverage to sort of figure out how those raids might be prioritized or what communities might be protected.
As blue state leaders adjust, it remains to be seen how effective these efforts will be. Aaron Rainin, VOA News, New York City.
Jessica, incoming border czar Tom Homan has been meeting with a variety of stakeholders on the immigration issue. What can you tell us? And has there been any movements towards reducing the influx of migrants into the United States as a result?
It's a good question, Susan. In terms of meetings, Homan has been meeting in Canada this week with 4 Canadian ministers about the border, and after that, the ministers there did announce a $909 million plan to beef up security on the U.S.-Canada border, additional helicopters, surveillance towers, sniffing dogs, and a joint strike force that will target organized crime. But and all of this in response, of course, to Trump threatening a 25% tariff on Canada or Mexico if they didn't get the problem, quote, under control. Now, the Canadian border, though, really not the source of the main influx of migrants, of course, into the United States. They're at about 20% of the apprehensions that we're seeing on the southern border. And earlier this month, we did see Mexico begin talks with Washington about addressing this problem. Specifically, they want to avoid deportees being sent back just to Mexico, especially those that are not from Mexico, that are from other countries. They don't want to be a third country destination for these deportees, and that's the focus of their talks. Other countries that could pick up those deportees: Panama, Turks and Caicos, or Grenada, perhaps the Bahamas, although we've also heard from the Bahamas that they do not want to be one of those third-party countries to pick up deportees. And again, we're talking about millions of people that would need to be deported here under the Trump's proposal.
And we're learning more and more about Donald Trump's proposed mass deportation plans. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's been some numbers run by a couple of immigration institutes. One of them, the Center for Migration Studies, giving us 2022 numbers, which of course are not current, but they say that most immigrants without legal status live in the state of California, which is a sanctuary state, meaning that the local jurisdictions, the local law enforcement do not have to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, and they would not cooperate in the case of a deportation. But another leading state, Texas, also Florida, they do have to cooperate. They are not sanctuary states. They have large numbers as well, about 1.8 million undocumented migrants in the state of Texas. Immigration advocates, though, estimate that about 5 million of these citizens that we're talking about the Trump administration deporting also have children that are living with an immigrant parent, meaning there would be a question of family separation if the parent is deported. And Trump has been very clear on this point in interviews, saying that he wants to make sure that the families make the choice either to stay together and be deported together or be willing to be separated, with the children staying in the United States and the parents going back to their home country. He also told Time Magazine this week, he's the Time Magazine Person of the Year, that he believed that the military would be a key factor, a key tool in his mass deportations, quote, as far as the law will allow. And that is an open question, as we've been discussing on this program.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much for all of that reporting and analysis. A very happy holiday to you, and I will speak to you soon.
Best wishes.
The bill faces significant criticism